Hey everybody, it's Cathy Reisenweitz. I am live for Libertarian Slut. I'll introduce myself while I wait for questions to come in. I have been a libertarian for many a year now. I started writing about liberty in 2008, I think, with anarcho-capitalism blog. My blog now is Sex and the State. You can find it at cathyreisenweitz.com/blog or just Google Sex and the State. I have worked for and written for Reason magazine. I've also worked for Students for Liberty, and I also write for FEE right now, the Foundation for Economic Education. I'm super excited to be doing this. I was invited by Leslie, the beautiful Leslie Peterson. I figured it was a perfect fit for me, libertarian slut, because I am libertarian-ish and slut-y. So I'm excited to get your questions and talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. Thank you for the nice comments, guys and girls and non-gender conforming individuals. Yeah, I hope everybody's having a good time. It's late for me. I'm usually in bed at this time. I'm an old woman. Let's see. Hey, what's going on in Liberty? So the last thing I wrote for FEE was about Obamacare. That was pretty interesting. I'll be interested to see what happens next. Another thing that I want to write about is religious liberty. I've been thinking about, I read an interesting thing in National Review about why carving out exceptions for Muslims in France on the basis of religious liberty is problematic, and it seemed like the writer was using that to advocate for limiting religious liberty for Muslims, but I thought he actually made a really good argument against religious liberty more generally. And so the idea is, if a law is so important that we're going to restrict everybody's liberty, then why carve out exemptions for certain people because they believe certain things, right? Either the law is so important that everybody should have to adhere to it, or everyone should be exempt from it. They shouldn't have to appeal to some, belief system that not everybody ascribes to. I don't know. So anyway, that's something I've been thinking about. But I'm gonna look at some questions because I've been talking. I'm not in the tub, but I am in my bed. Thank you. First, somebody said I was pretty. That was nice. What topic do I consider myself an expert on? Nothing. I think I'm a decent writer, and I've tried to read a lot about liberty and government, but nothing. I think that's what's tough about me is I'm curious about a lot of things. I'll get into something, like really into something for a short period of time. I was super into Bitcoin, but I never really understood like the mechanisms of how cryptocurrencies work. So I just kind of got into it from a high level perspective of, I don't want to have government have a monopoly on money, and I think that the way that we exchange money is very inefficient, and so I loved the idea of Bitcoin, so I kind of tried to sell it. I just get into things and then I move on. I haven't written about Bitcoin in a while, so I'm very shallow and wide in my knowledge, unfortunately. I am not voting. I was asked, who are you voting for president? I don't vote, mostly because I'm lazy. I could also give you the justification. I'm an anarchist. I think voting is a bunch of people forcing a slightly smaller number of people to do their bidding at gunpoint. But mostly the truth is I am lazy. My shirt, I'm not wearing a shirt. I agree, it is too late to talk politics. I would never have scheduled this at midnight, but love you, Leslie. Um, oh, okay. So, what are my thoughts on Colin Kaepernick? I don't know if I'm saying that right. I think that peaceful protest is really important, and that the issue of police brutality and structural racism in America is really important. And I appreciate someone who has a platform, like being a nationally recognized sports figure, using that platform for good. And I think that raising awareness of police brutality is good. Would I agree with him on maybe anything else? I don't know. I don't agree with football players on much, but it doesn't matter. If somebody's right on one thing, that doesn't mean they're wrong on another thing. And I think it's dumb to try to. I think it's counterproductive to try to undermine credibility for someone who's making a good point by bringing up the things that they're wrong about. So, um, do you believe all boobs should be liberated, freed from the oppression of bras, or do you think that they need the external support? Uh, I think some boobs, some boob havers probably appreciate the support. Um, I'm a supporter of free the nipple. I think that men and women should be free to, at least legally free to wear shirts or not wear shirts as they see fit. I was, though, at a topless beach or a top optional beach like 2 weeks ago in Spain, and I was like, all right, cool, I'm going to be liberated. And so I took my bikini top off for about a minute. I was like, all right, I'm too American for this. So I don't have any problem with it, but I couldn't get into it. Someone asks, is freedom of religion a non-aggression pact? I think that freedom of religion is a non-aggression carve-out. And so that's my issue with it, is that we're going to aggress on everyone unless you're religious in this particular way. Unless you're religious, and then you get to be exempt from the aggression. I think that that's problematic. But that the religion pact thing brings up some interesting thoughts that I've been having about, that I haven't figured out, I haven't sorted out, about whether and to what extent the Enlightenment is just a pact between religions to not be violent, and, whether we need another one, which is not like breaking or particularly insightful. But I do think that a ceasefire, that to the extent that the Enlightenment is a ceasefire, it's not very exciting to people. And so we've not done a good job of like selling tolerance and liberalism because people take it for granted. So that's something that I'm passionate about, is I want to figure out, how do we articulate how useful and important liberalism and tolerance and non-aggression are to people who have competing interests, like religions, that aren't necessarily, not every aspect of every religion is in line with tolerance and liberalism. So, yeah. Someone asked what I think about what is going on in Standing Rock, and I do not know. So if someone wants to explain it to me a little bit, I would appreciate it. So Bronson asks, what sorts of things do you think the government should control or limit? I think that if there is a justification for the state, and I do not accept that there is, I'm an anarchist, that the only legitimate function of government would be the protection of property rights. Yeah. Did you celebrate National Go Topless Day? I did not know that existed, but based on my beach performance, I probably would not be able to do that. Okay, as an anarchist, how do you think we get there? And can it be done in one country and not in others? I mean, if the entire world was the same way, anarchy, it would be easier, but since countries aren't likely to go away, how would it work here? I think that free cities could be a really interesting possibility for experimenting with anarchy, and seasteading is the other kind of practical experiment that people are trying to run right now. So, yeah, I think those are our best bets. I don't think, America is likely to just voluntarily dissolve our government. I don't know that I would want, armed revolution right now, but it's possible. But yeah, I think free cities and seasteading are good, non-violent ways to experiment with anarchy. So I support those. Sorry, I'm reading. Oh, okay, here we go. This is interesting. How do you feel about the use of alt-right to describe some of today's conservatives? Do you believe it is a valid term, or do you see the beliefs of the alt-right as already established conservative GOP traits? I think the alt-right is, first of all, these terms are frustrating because they're never perfect. We're always going to be debating about what they actually mean. Anytime you say, well, the alt-right is this, then a bunch of people who consider themselves alt-right are going to be like, no, it isn't. And it's not even like feminism where we're arguing about what feminism is, but we can mostly agree on like, okay, feminism is the movement against sexism. I don't know how to, like, I can't summarize alt-right that clearly. But I mean, it's not like social justice warrior. Like, it's not a term of derision. Like, they use it themselves, or people call themselves alt-right. So, I have a lot of feelings about the alt-right. I've written a lot about the alt-right. I think to the extent that they're upset with movement conservatism, with traditional conservatism, certainly with the GOP, I sympathize. Particularly the GOP's corporatism and the fact that they are contemptuous. They hold the low wage, low skill workers in contempt. I think that that's really crappy. Sorry. But I think that it's really unfortunate the way that the alt-right isn't gathering around together to fight up, right? I mean, when I think about corporatism, when I think about Hillary Clinton, when I think about, Fox News, it's like we're all upset about welfare, and we're not worried about corporate welfare, right? We're worried about welfare queens, but our paychecks are going, when you think about, for example, the best example I can think of, the one that really affects literally everyone, is the payroll tax. The payroll tax is 30% of your income. You only see 15% come out. Your employer pays the other 15%. It's off the first dollar you earn. And there's actually a cap on, after a certain amount of income, you don't get that income over that amount doesn't go to the payroll tax. So it's an extremely regressive tax, and it is distributed from the relatively young and poor to the relatively old and rich. So it's regressive in that area as well. And so when you think about how much of your paycheck goes to food stamps or whatever, it's so tiny, especially compared to the payroll tax. But the GOP and Fox News and Rush Limbaugh and, movement conservatism has us all riled up about the one, and we're not even worried about the other. And so the alt-right, instead of being like, no, like, screw you guys, I'm tired of corporate welfare, I'm tired of regressive taxation, I'm tired of trade deals that, incentivize American corporations to hire overseas, like, let's fight up. Instead, the alt-right's fighting down. The alt-right is not everybody associated with the alt, not everyone who calls themselves alt-right, but a lot of people who are associated with the alt-right are like beating up on people who have it even worse than they do, and I just think that that's such a missed opportunity. So, yeah. Okay, should we address public schools teaching creationism? Is it a state's right to do so? Screw the public education monopoly. Like, end it yesterday. Creationism is the least of its problems. Oh my gosh, no, it doesn't make any sense for every kid to be learning the exact same thing. Besides, I'm not going to lead the same life. I'm not going to need the same skills. I'm not going to have the same capabilities as every other kid. So why do I have to learn the exact same thing? I think parents should be able to choose where their kids go to school and what their kids learn. If I am a person who believes in creationism and I want to make sure that my kids learn that, I hope that you also learn empiricism. I hope that you learn that that's not supported by empirical evidence. But if you want to believe it and you want to learn it, that's fine. But that's the problem with the public education monopoly, is that, well, then we all have to learn it. And I think that that's really unfortunate, and it's really problematic for the kids trapped in the failing schools, So anyway, do you think the powers that be care what you think? You are naive if you think your opinion matters. No, I just like hearing myself talk. Why are Democrats so in denial about Hillary? I have no idea. I think that's so weird. I think Hillary is so terrible. Could trolls become more important than the mainstream media? I think they already are, to an extent. I think that... Oh man, that's such an interesting question. I guess what I would say, first of all, is that people act like randos on the internet don't matter. That unless you have, and I think people underestimate how much just randos on the internet matter, and they overestimate how much, the media matters. And they certainly overestimate how, I don't know, I think they think that, like, the media is more organized and has this, like, agenda, but, like, they're all just trying to keep their jobs and get clicks. But I think it's been really interesting, like, to see how trolls have shaped the media, because, prominent, especially female journalists and writers have, like, stopped writing and stopped participating in social media to avoid harassment. Like, that is an impact on the media. Like, that's an impact on the information that we have access to an extent that I don't think is appreciated. What is your relationship with religion, and how does it inform your political beliefs? Well, I would say it's complicated. Um, my relationship with religion is fraught. I have beliefs, and I try not to let it inform my political beliefs. I try to base my political beliefs on reason and empiricism, and that's difficult because you still have to choose what your values are. So I can say, all right, school choice leads to better education, or at least better parental satisfaction. It leads to higher earnings for the people who go through them, right? But then the question is, well, what do you value? Do you value parental satisfaction, or do you value high test scores, or right? Reason and empiricism will get you to where you want to go. Religion is a way to figure out where that is. I'm not saying it's a good one, but if you don't have religion, then you have to choose yourself, and that's freaking hard. It's something I'm really struggling with. Like, I don't know, what do I value? I value prosperity. Why? I don't know, like, freedom is good. But I don't know, I was listening to a podcast, and empirical evidence is showing that freedom doesn't make you happy, that actually making a decision and being committed to it makes you happier than more choice. So, do I value happiness more than prosperity if the two are in conflict? Like, I don't know. I think it's really hard. It's something that I struggle with always, and like even more lately. Oh man, what do you think about the class system? Oh, I'm so obsessed with class. I'm so obsessed with class. I don't know what is meant by the class system exactly, but I think people are really uncomfortable about class, which causes them to be really defensive about it, which causes them to not really think about it enough, I think. I think especially libertarians don't want to think about class. And I think that it's really an impediment to our thinking, that we could apply a lot of good thinking and a lot of good analysis to questions of class if we would consider them more and more honestly. I think class represents impediments to upward mobility. My good friend Gina talks about how she wasn't raised with, I don't know if she uses the word manners, and I don't want to offend her, but kind of manners. Like, there are things that you learn about what to say and how to say it and how to act, and that are different between different groups of people. Not even class, but they're different between different groups of people. And if you show up and you don't know how to act, then people don't want you around. It makes them uncomfortable. And so that is an example of a class-based impediment to class mobility, where how do you don't even know you don't know until you try and fail and somebody points it out to you, I guess, or you read it. I don't know. I don't even know how you figure that out. And I'm not saying that makes it impossible, but it's a hindrance, and I think that we should talk about it, and it matters if we want everyone to be prosperous. Like, I think that there are many, many people who have incredible, incredible potential to make us all richer, to innovate, to invent, who, because of the place and time and situation they were born, are deprived of some of the tools to reach their full potential. And that's upsetting, and I think that matters. And if we can help break down those barriers to the extent that we can, I think that should, I don't know, that's a goal of my politics. Thoughts on the libertarian love for vouchers? I was reading about school choice recently, and somebody was talking about how vouchers are not a panacea, and one reason is because they come with so many restrictions. So a lot of private schools don't want to take voucher kids. For example, one restriction is that if you take vouchers, then you have to take every kid with a voucher that wants to go to your school. And the two problems with that is the obvious problem, which is that, private schools want to discriminate based on, how well behaved and how competent you are, or you seem to be, what your potential seems to be. But then there's just the other issue of one good thing about a private school being able to discriminate is not just like the good ones take the good kids, it's that some schools are just going to be a better fit. Like some kids are going to be a better fit for some schools. And so it's an important freedom. It's important for the school to function well, just like an employer, to be able to evaluate whether a kid is going to succeed in that environment. So I think when I first heard about vouchers, I was so angry about the public education monopoly. I was like, yeah, vouchers, like, it feels good. Like, every kid should have the chance to go to a decent school, right? And that's the goal of vouchers, and that is what they accomplish in the immediate term. That's the seen, but the unseen is they can inhibit private schools' ability to do their job as well. So those are my thoughts on vouchers. Is Snowden a hero? Absolutely. Unquestionably. Are you a pumpkin spice lover? Yeah, I'm basic. I'm definitely going to see the Oliver Stone movie. I thought you guys are going to hate me for this, but I thought the documentary was super boring. I mean, it made me love him even more, and it was a crazy story, but the movie itself, I'm just like, oh my gosh, this is long. Way too much time, like, in the hotel room. um, let's see. Whew. Gawker versus Peter Thiel. That is such an interesting question. I think that the claim that this is a huge blow for free speech to have Peter Thiel, effectively a billionaire, effectively shut down Gawker is way overblown. I do think Peter Thiel definitely has said and written things that make me worried, but it's one website, and I think free speech is going to be fine. Also, media companies are already run by small numbers of billionaires, so. Do I like beards? Yes, I'm a big fan of beards. Talk about the dangerous chemicals in our food and water. I'm not qualified. I think the most dangerous chemical is probably sugar. Okay. All right. Thank you guys so much for coming. I appreciate the questions. A lot of them were super interesting, and I wish that I had more information to share. um, Do you even lift is the one I'm gonna end with, and the answer is yes, though it's difficult to tell here. All right, thanks guys.